Hey guys, I wanted to put out a video real quick to go over making high stat builds. This will have tips on how to get high stat armor, how to use a D2 armor picker to create that armor set, and then put it all together in a loadout. If you don't already have a high stat exotic armor piece that you want to make a build with, you can take some of the exotic engrams that you get from ritual playlists and bring them over to Rahul. Go to Focus Decoding, and if you don't really know what you want to make and you just want to turn in that exotic engram and just get a random armor piece, you can choose any of these engrams. But if you go to the next page, you can focus specific armor pieces. This will use quite a lot of materials. It'll take up 2 Ascendant Shards, a bunch of Glimmer, and 1 of your engrams. But it will let you focus that specific armor piece. So if you have 4 exotic engrams like I do, you can have 4 chances at getting a good roll on that armor piece. If you have a stat that you want to prioritize in your build, like if it's for PvE, you might want to prioritize Resilience or Discipline. And if it's for PvP, you might want to prioritize Recovery or Intellect or Discipline. You can go to your Ghost mod and just adjust which stat it's focusing. So any of these stats, you can select it and focus that armor piece. So right now I'll focus Gear Falcons because I just made a build about this. If you want to go check it out, I'll leave a link in the description and it'll probably be the featured video at the end of this video. But I'll focus Gear Falcons. And let's check out what roll we got. Not too great. Definitely a good starter if you don't already have a Gear Falcons. It's got good mobility, resilience, discipline, and strength. So not too bad. Definitely could be better, but that's just an example of focusing. All this Ghost mod will do is will just guarantee that that stat is more than 10. It won't guarantee that that stat has a huge spike. It'll just guarantee that there's more than 10 in that stat. If you've already got an exotic armor piece that you want to make a build with, you can go over to the helm and get some high stat armor from any of the vendors there by going to the focusing section, finding the armor pieces, and doing the same thing that I did with the exotic with any of the 4 armor pieces that have relevant stats. What I'll usually do when I am making a build is if I want to focus resilience, mobility, and discipline, I will grab 2 armor pieces per slot with each stat. So if I go in, I'll grab 2 helmets with mobility, 2 arms, chests, and legs, all with mobility, swap the mod over to resilience, grab 2 of each, and then swap it over to discipline, and grab 2 of each. This will be helpful when you go over to D2 armor picker because it will have more pieces of armor to select to make that high stat build. So legendary armor has a max of 34 in the top 3 slots and 34 in the bottom 3 slots. The highest stat that a legendary armor piece can get rolled with is 68 overall. This armor piece is a 66 that's also Artifice, which allows me to add 3 stats wherever I want. You can get Artifice armor from any of the master dungeons. A lot of them are on rotators, and you can farm a specific encounter, like the boss encounter, to get a bunch of different rolls of Artifice armor. So one last thing before I go over to D2 armor picker. Once you grab all of the armor for the build that you are trying to make, the next thing you need to do is take note of the fragments that you want to use in your build. If you already have a build that you like, just go to that subclass and inspect all of the fragments. Anything that has a plus or minus for a specific stat, like plus 10 intellect, plus 10 strength, minus 10 discipline, any of these, remember the names of those fragments. This will be relevant when we go over to D2 armor picker and we need to select the fragments to help distribute the stats in our build. So for example, this is my solar PvP build. I've got Searing, Mercy, Beams, and Combustion. So when I go over to D2 armor picker, I scroll down, make sure that solar is selected, Searing, Mercy, Beams, Combustion. So that now that these are all selected, I can go ahead and select the exotic armor piece that I want to make the build for. So this build that I'm going to make is going to be for the Dragon's Shadow. I just select that armor piece. Now that it's loaded, I can go ahead and make sure that all of these settings are correct. So I can scroll down and try and optimize wasted stats. I highly recommend putting this on. This will just make sure that you don't have like 59 recovery, because that's 9 wasted stats. Each tier cuts off at the multiple of 10. So you want to get as close to 0 as possible with each stat. So now that you have that one checked and you have the exotic selected, you can go ahead and try and make some builds. What you can do is you can select any of these from the drop down here if you want to make a triple 100 build. So if I wanted to make mobility, recovery, and intellect for a Trials of Osiris loadout, I could just select these 3 and it would see if there are any possibilities for this. There are 42 possibilities for this, and what I can do is sort by tiers. So if I have the highest amount of tiers, this is the highest amount of stats that I can have on this build. Now, Thorn is very popular this season, and you need more than 6 resilience to not get killed with 2 heads and 1 body shot. So I'm going to not take any of these builds because they have 4 resilience or lower. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down the mobility by 2 tiers and raise the resilience up to tier 6. Now, I don't have a triple 100 build. It's not really needed because when I play PvP, I use Rose, which is a lightweight, and that makes up for the mobility loss. So now that I've got these builds, I can just select whichever one I want. What I want to look for is ones that have less 4-cost mods. So recovery, resilience, and intellect are all 4-cost. So the less 4-cost mods, the better. This one only has 2, this one has 2, and then a 2-cost mod, so that's pretty good. I think I'll go with this one. And we can open this loadout in dim. It'll pull it up, and before we do anything else, I will select the class item that I want. Mine is favorited. I use this class item in pretty much every build. Now, customize subclass, and select the super that you want. So this is for Trials of Osiris, so I want a low cooldown super. I usually use Gambler's Dodge. I like Strafe Jump in PvP. I'm a big fan of the Procs, Knives, and Incendiary Grenade. And then the aspects that I'm going to use are On Your Mark and Knock 'em Down. And the last fragment that wasn't selected was Singeing, because it didn't have any stats on it. There's no plus or minus stats. So I just apply those subclass options, and then I can just name this as Trials Dragon Shadow, save, and apply. So Dim has just finished applying these armor pieces and subclass options and mods to my build. So if I open up the game, you'll see that all of these pieces are applied. As you can see, my stats aren't all the way there, but after I masterwork these 2 pieces of armor, it should be the stats that I was looking for. Now that all my armor pieces are masterworked, you can see that I have all of the stats that were selected in D2 Armor Picker. The last step is to just save it as a new loadout. You can go and set up whatever mods you need based on what your build requires, but that was how to make a high stat build in Destiny 2. Go and check out my Gear Falcons build guide. This will be found in the end of the video credits. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions.